But I am sure if we exchange positions, if you are standing where I'm standing, you guys would have switched off the media. But us, we will not.
Step in the right direction in preserving the country's unity and stability, Executive Secretary of IGAD Wokne Gebeyehu says moments after Ruto and Raila agreed to talk. Death toll likely to rise after 19 people are killed on Sunday morning in the village of Bulwa in North Kivu, Democratic Republic of Congo. Rwandan Patriotic Front elects Consoli Uwimana first woman vice president as President Paul Kagame retained the chairmanship position. Third Chief Justice Symposium on Environmental Law underway in Nairobi. Summit to promote greening judiciaries in Africa. Very well, and thank you for watching KTN News. My name is Dennis Aseta. Welcome to this edition of Africa Speaks. We have stories making headlines for you, including a conversation on the just announced truce between President William Ruto and Raila Odinga with regards to what the opposition wants to be done. How is it going? I'll be having this conversation with Michael Agwanda, political analyst, and Ishmael Nyariba a bit later, who is also an advocate. But now let's take Africa Speaks on the road. Now, at least 19 killed in DR Congo landslides, according to local officials in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo. They say a landslide killed at least 19 people on Sunday morning. An official in the village of Bulwa in North Kivu province said the death toll was likely to rise, saying some members of the group of women and children who had been washing laundry in a mountain stream were buried after the ground collapsed beneath them. The search for more victims will resume today and is ongoing. The region has been battered for months by heavy rains, which have triggered flooding and mudslide. And Rwanda's ruling party, the Rwandan Patriotic Front, elected its first woman vice as President Paul Kagame retained the chairmanship position. Consoli Uwimana was elected by 1,945 votes, about 93% of the votes cast. Observers say promoting her is the party's way of giving more power to women and keeping the ethnicity quota balanced in its top leadership. Uwimana is a veteran banker and businesswoman who served as senator until 2019. Rwanda's next general elections is scheduled for 2024. President Kagame has been president of the East African nation since 2000. A controversial referendum in 2015 removed a two-constitutional limit for presidents. Kagame got 99.8% of the total votes to retain the leadership of the ruling party. Rwanda has one of the world's highest proportion of women in parliament and government. Now, the Executive Secretary of the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, Wokne Gebeyehu, has lauded President William Ruto and opposition chief Raila Odinga for giving dialogue a chance to resolve challenges facing the country. Wokne said in a Twitter post that the move is a step in the right direction in preserving the country's unity and stability. In his words, and I quote, "I congratulate President William Ruto and Raila Odinga for their readiness to engage in dialogue to resolve differences on national issues through peaceful means and preserve Kenya's unity and constitutional order." Ongera wa Kenya, his statement came hours after Azimio la Umoja, One Kenya coalition leader Raila Odinga suspended countrywide demonstrations. This decision came after Odinga accepted President Ruto's proposal for bipartisan parliamentary process on the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC, Commissioner's recruitment, Odinga has called for protest every Monday and Thursday, accusing Ruto of robbing him of last year's election and for failing to address the high cost of living. And it is that story right there that takes us to a conversation. On set with me is Ishmael Nyaribo, advocate of the High Court, and also political analyst Michael Agwanda, political analyst. Welcome to the set.
Thank you.
Now, it has been a tough period for the country pretty much. Every week, it has been maandamano and demonstrations on the streets. Police not coming in to basically just disperse the demonstrators, that despite being agreed for by the law. Just how do you take police behavior during that entire period, Agwanda?
Thank you, Dennis, for having us here. Today I came over at the studio and I saw Ken Mijungu in a suit. And I kind of joked with him and I said, man, today you're in a suit. The last few days of Mandamano, Ken Mijungu was really casual because his expectation was that if he went to the street, he should have been in the right gear to run away if charged upon. And of course, we know that a number of journalists were hurt as a result of this demonstration. But that would say I also came on the studio today in a suit, knowing very well that I didn't have to run out there if something happened. That's on a lighter note. The reality is that Kenya in the last 2 weeks have been tempted and tested in ways that perhaps many pundits have only seen a doom end of it. And the reason why this was happening is because the principles, as I may be able to use that word now, from the opposition and the government side did not want to see each other at all. Neither did they want to hear from each other. In fact, if anything, their handlers were so harsh that you'll think that President William Ruto was not in control, and you'll think that Honorable Raila Odinga perhaps was not in control of his team. And you could see the people around them coming up with such vigor and vile and words that you will not imagine that leaders will be talking about, even to threaten to invade people's farms. And later on, you could see that that really happened. And then you're wondering, is it happening with the knowledge of the president, or is it really happening with the knowledge of the former prime minister?
And Nyaribo, this whole debacle, we've seen it play around for 2 weeks or more. And during this entire period, as much as we know that it is a right for Kenyans to go to the streets as enshrined in the Constitution, you find that was being curtailed. You're being told, don't show up, else we will deal with you. At that particular point, who protects the Constitution?
I think straightforward, it is the citizens who protect the Constitution, because you see, it's a document of governance, and the government is actually supposed to protect it. But once the government starts to disrupt the people's peace, people's right to assembly, then the people come in to protect the Constitution. And you can now see that the Constitution is actually really a strong document, and it has life of its own. Even if you say you do not want to meet with the other side, whatever you say, I mean, that is your personal feeling. The Constitution is supreme. And then we have to bring in the idea of Friends of Kenya, and they saw what was happening, and they obviously made their calls and said, this has to come to an end. So as far as I'm concerned, it is the people who remain supreme. And I want to add here, I said here on just about a week ago, that people should distinguish between what is the state and what is government. Kenyans own a state called Kenya. There is not one individual. In fact, Tanzanian president says it very, very well. She says, there is nobody who has a title deed for Tanzania. You see. So the same thing for Kenya. It is Kenyans who own the country. And they form a state called the Republic of Kenya. That is a state. Then the people donate powers for leadership to a government. So it is the people, it is the state that gives power to government. Now, who is the president? President is a head of state and head of government. So you do not go to State House to make certain choices just because you want to satisfy yourself. This is what Kenyans were saying the whole week. If Kenyans want you to sit down with Raila Odinga, kindly go sit down, find a way how, because that's what they want. Do you know that it's not within Raila Odinga's powers to simply say from tomorrow we are not going for demonstrations? No, his supporters are telling him we want to be heard, we want food prices to come down, we want to be friends as Kenyans, we are not enemies as we are being told. Kenya is not a parastatal, Kenya is not a private company, Kenya is a state and we are the owners, and we are saying go sit down as leaders and agree. So that is not something you can refuse, by the way. It is not within your power, even as a head of state, to say, no, I cannot sit with so-and-so. And I think we must call out the people around the president who are actually hardliners, misadvising the president in the open daylight. How can you refuse to sit it down? And I say it again, we talk using, words. It is less animals who use other language. I don't know what language they use, but they communicate too. Yeah. So for us, we talk. So it's unfair for leaders around the president to tell him we can never discuss with anybody. It is not upon them. It's upon the people of Kenya to say, this is how we want to go. This is the psyche we want people to know or see about Kenya. And it's not a choice of an individual or two to say that this is what we must. So anyway, so far I'm happy that we are not in demonstrations, and like my brother said, we are now in suits. We'll be coming here and wondering we might be running any time.
And when we talk about being in suits, as the media, our sole responsibility then is to cover whatever is happening in the country.
Yeah, and again, by the way, we must call out those who attacked the journalists along Kibera, the Link Road. I remember last Thursday or Monday, and also those police officers who were actually tear gassing, and using very quite battlefront kind of theatrics, as if a journalist is armed in any other manner. So we cannot, media freedom is part and parcel of the democracy of any nation.
And I think just on that note, let us just go to the Constitution on what it exactly says about media freedom. And if that will just be pulled up, it says freedom and independence of electronic, print and all other types of media. It's guaranteed, but not to the extent to any expression specified in Article 33. That is the Constitution of Kenya, Article 34 on freedom of the media. And it goes ahead in section 2 and says the state shall not A, exercise control over or interfere with any person engaged in broadcasting, the production or circulation of any publication or the dissemination of information by any medium, or penalize any person for any opinion or view in the content of any broadcast, publication or dissemination. This is the law speaking, the law, the constitution that Kenyans voted for, the Constitution 2010, Mr. Agwanda. When this specific article of the Constitution is being disregarded by the powers that be, from where you see it, what is going on? Because this is
from where I sit, I think we're having loose cannons in government, and they have to be called upon, and they have to own up to some of this responsibility. When you're a deputy president and you go out there and talk about the media negatively, what you are actually telling your juniors who are cops is that I don't care about them, and whatever you do to them, I don't think I like them, and I don't think we will say anything to protect them. The Constitution protects them. The freedom of expression protects them, our ability to be able to express ourselves. But not only that, to be informed accordingly. You cannot say that all the media guys are in Azimio, they are the sympathizers of Azimio. I really don't think so. And making such a statement is actually an insult to you as an individual, because at that moment you're actually in front of that media and they're reporting what you're saying. And so I don't know whether they will, media has ceased to be just writing on the newspapers. Media has gone beyond just, somebody saying something and then you get to hear about it tomorrow. It's so instant. If it is not written on the paper, it is going to be on TV. And if it's not on TV, it's going to be on YouTube. If it's not on YouTube, it's going to be on Instagram and social media. So you cannot say that the media is biased all the times, that what they're doing is biased. You're setting them up, against your juniors and against against the public. But you know what? The public knows better. The public get this information and they consume it. And so you as a leader need to be very careful, because you are the one who's going to complain when they don't report about your activities in the near future here. What I'm saying is the leadership of Kenya Kwanza must respect the media, and they must refrain from saying things that makes media look bad. And they must also know that they are the government, and if they're the government, they will need information to go out there of the good that they're doing, the things that they're supposed to do. The president is out every single day, either opening a function or presiding, an activity out there. They need that information to go on. How will they think if the media now gives them a blackout and say, well, we don't think we want to go where Rigiji is, the deputy president is. We don't think where we want to go, and we will not report it. What will they say? They'll come back again and say, look, this information needs to go out there. What I'm saying is very clear. Life lost, regardless of whether it's a media or a Kenyan citizen, in any form of sector, or even in a demonstration, is not something that we can, look down and not explain.
And Ishmael, we've seen videos going out there, clearly the media being attacked. Maybe your response to that.
I just wanted to say this. Media freedom is actually also part of individual freedom, allowing people to express themselves. If I say something in front of such a great television network, I shouldn't be limited, because then they are limiting my fundamental right to free speech. The same thing for media, and more, because at least you're covering everything, public and private, whatever it is, as long as the media is also responsible. And again, these are all, spelled out in the Media Act. You can see that what you've been doing in terms of covering the riots and how they were happening, the media was actually quite responsible on that. They did not try to become, scandalous or try to create some fiction like the DCI had actually created some photos and splashed them on his Twitter handle. So people must not be limited. The independence of the people should not be limited, and therefore that's why media is there, to protect such, so that you can give me a chance to speak, give everyone a chance to speak. When you go out to report, you actually talk to several people. You ask them, what do you think is going on? What's going on here? And people speak. So you're being told, don't do that because you are irresponsible. I saw a letter from the Communications Authority. I don't know if that letter was genuine, saying that the media should be responsible how they are covering. I think it was genuine, isn't it? It came out.
It was even contested in court.
It's so funny. The person of class of Ezra Chiloba is an advocate. If he actually authorized or authored that particular letter. So you can see that unless the people take up their power as the sovereign people of the country, the government and the governments all over the world, they actually try to come up with a big brother attitude, and they can easily actually deny the freedom of press and freedom of media.
Even when you talk about the freedom of the media in part 5, it also speaks about Parliament shall enact legislation that provides for the establishment of a body which shall A, be independent of control by government, political interest or commercial interest, reflect the interest of all sections of the society, and set media standards and regulate compliance with those standards.
You see, the Media Council is there. By the way, the government has, we have done well to enact these laws. That's not a problem. The problem is when you put somebody at the head of the institution and then he gets a funny call and he decides to completely follow without reading the act as it is or reading the law. So in terms of enactment, we have enough legislation. But is everybody following it? That I don't know.
Agwanda, as we talk about anyone who has complained to the media, it's clearly stipulated in the Constitution, go through the Media Council of Kenya, who have a complaints commission, who will then listen to your grievances against any media house. But the other day, Deputy President says he shall not follow that route because he will speak to the Kenyans directly. At that point, do we have two sets of laws that determines where you go and another Kenyan goes?
There are protocols that need to be followed. There's system in government, and there are many laws that need to be observed. But sometimes leaders just don't read. They don't read the laws, and sometimes they even forget that those laws are there. You know, just the other day, you had the IG saying, you know, I'm the IG of police force. And then you realize,
the commander, actually.
Yeah, the commander of the police force. And then you realize, well, is that in this country or somewhere else? You know, that kind of a situation. Yesterday, there was a press briefing that was done by the Editors Guild. I think, you know, Ms. Otieno came in, the president of Editors Guild, and said there is a possibility that if a demonstration would have taken place today, that the internet was going to be cut and any communication, whether TV or not, was going to be curtailed. To that extent, we don't know where they got that information. But if it's true, then you can, in fact, where it was, where we were in the evening, I had a meeting with some senators, and you know, the first thing they said, are we going Ugandan way? That is the first statement they made. Now, you can imagine a freedom of, I mean, the media freedom in this country. And the media has gone beyond just being biased in this country, because there are a number of media stations, including KBC, which is a government-owned media station. So when you say that the other medias are biased, but you don't allow KBC to air the demonstration, then what are you trying to tell people? Are you actually telling people that we are more biased than you because we don't want others to know what is happening in this? But
now, Nyaribo, sorry, Kashur, Nyaribo, now when you talk about as we move forward today, you know, demonstration, because there is a truce that has been called by both sides. I mean, moving forward, what are we likely to look at?
That you mean apart from media freedom, eh?
Yeah.
But because I really wanted to add that when the former president had a dispute with a media station, I think it was one of the media stations, he actually lodged a complaint at the Media Council, and the complaint was listened and arbitrated, and it was resolved. I think that is the way to go. So no one should imagine that they can simply relegate the institutions. Now, you ask what would appear to be the way forward. I think we said it here last week that it was time, because Raila Odinga had actually made his point. People had listened to him, and now it was time for him to call off the demonstrations. And it seems like the president now and the former prime minister are reading from the same script. That is very good for everybody, because we are able to go back and work. We are able to go to the offices. We are able to go and hustle in the streets. That's important. Now, of course, social media is awash with a lot of funny reasons for the two agreeing. But any right-minded person knows that it was important for the president to call on Raila Odinga that let's have a bipartisan agreement on the selection panel for IEBC and all other grievances they have. Let people sit down and talk. That is, I think, very wonderful. No one should try to take credit for that kind of move. Especially, you see, you know, Kenya now, we have become like Arsenal and Manchester United. You know, people pulling each other, saying, oh, it's us, oh, we want this one. I think that should be, you know, looked at in terms of what it is. It is nothing. Those are just some, I can call them, you know, citizens who are some idle or who want just to make the other one feel bad. But in the real sense, what the head of state did, that is the only positive thing that any good head of state could do. You are a president. Which other office is above you? So coming down to say, let us talk, that is really, really mature and actually appropriate for the head of state to do. Now, Raila Odinga wants more than the selection panel. It is not him. Jameni, let's have these things understood. It is not Raila Odinga. The way people start profiling and saying, oh, Bondo, whatnot, oh, it is not Raila Odinga. By the way, and I said it before, if these strikes did not have the violence element, you could be surprised how many middle-class Kenyans will go to the street to take part in a peaceful demonstration. That is the only thing keeping people away, because, I mean, somebody will tear my suit, I bought it for 5,000, 10,000, and I don't have the same money tomorrow. So Raila Odinga is not entirely wrong. He may be wrong because he belongs to a different political view from yours. But he is not wrong. He is actually propagating views, or rather bringing up views of the people. He is really representing people. I mean, saying that food prices should come down. that's not for a particular tribe or a particular people. So it's everyone in Kenya.
And Aganda, as we conclude moving forward now, we expect that the bipartisan engagement in Parliament is going to start moving forward as Kenyans. How do we make sure that all the cost of living goes down, the electoral injustices, everything is handled? What should we expect moving forward? What kind of conversations should we expect coming from the board?
First of all, I want to take this opportunity to thank President William Samoei Ruto for looking inwardly and taking the leadership that was given to him by the Kenyan people as the president, and saying, I want to have a truce. I want to have a discussion. The very words he used yesterday were very powerful. President Uhuru Kenyatta referred to Raila Odinga as his brother. But President William Samoei Ruto referred to Raila Odinga as his friend. And indeed, they've been friends. They've worked together. They fought for each other in 2007 in ways that have never been seen in this country. And therefore, I also want to congratulate Raila Odinga for leaving every, hardliners around him and saying, I think let's give a discussion a chance. Well, what's going to happen here is very simple. You've seen the president has summoned the leadership of parliament into State House today and given them the authority to look at the laws, relevant laws, and more specifically to look at the claims and the petition that Raila has been wanting to present to him and say, can you look at this thing and see whether we can talk around them and whether some of these things can also be changed if it is possible that we have to change laws so that they're included. If it is IEBC, for example, the selection of the commissioners of IEBC, it might have to go to parliament so that the laws are changed out there. And even as that happens, you know that very, very well that Raila Odinga was very, very close to President Uhuru Kenyatta. And these laws were actually changed during that time. And many pundits are actually saying they were changed because they knew Raila Odinga would be the president and he could have he could have a hold and a free hand into selecting these commissioners. Now it's biting him, but the reality is, as previously, what was done before is the IPPG, the parties were called together, and once they were called together, there was a selection from all, involved and different parties, and in that way, there was a representation, not only from government, but from the other political parties. So a bit of an inclusion of Kenyan face on it. But you'll also see Raila Odinga come up with the names of people that he really trusts, and he really wants to be involved in that discussion. And I think the same will come from the president's side. It's not going to be a short discussion. It's going to be a long discussion because they will disagree, and sometimes they will disagree to a point where they will not be seeing each other eye to eye. But I want to pray that even as they think of their men that will be sitting on this bipartisan discussion, that they will have people who are not brokers. Raila side has had men and women who are seriously brokers and does not care about this nation. And secondly, that as William Samoei Ruto, the President of the Republic of Kenya, will be selecting people that will be careful not to put hardliners in it. I conclude by saying this. Put people who put Kenya first, but not who look at their stomach first.
So now we have a problem.
As we conclude
we now have a big problem because now if this is a parliamentary process and then we have hardliners like the majority leader, Honorable Ichung'wah, and you have them leading such a process. So I think that it should not be limited to parliament, and we know that Kenya Kwanza has majority now. I think this is still going to be a long discussion, like he said, because you see, Raila is hinting at asking members of parliament who were elected on his party and are on the other side. He's going to ask them to resign and actually join the other side. And he could go this direction because he knows very well that if he recalls elections for Lang'ata, we know what might happen. If Raila insists that puts down his foot and decides, okay, Senator, you have opposed me in Kisumu. Right. Now we want to go back and join the team you like and let's have another election. So it might not be very kind. And like he said, it's a long discussion.
It is a long discussion. Raila Odinga says he wants to see changes within 1 week. Let's see how that will go. We'll be here to bring you the very latest with regards to that conversation. Thank you very much, gentlemen, Mr. Agonda and Ishmael Nyaribo, for gracing the show today. We definitely will be looking forward to what will be happening. And right now, we take a short commercial break right here on Africa Speaks. We'll be back with much more.